Hello everyone. My name is Kateryna Gridina. I am working as a software engineer in Zalando in Berlin, and the topic of my talk today will be app search in iOS. Although it's not a new topic, but I always keep finding some new interesting stuff there, so I would like to share it with you. So let's go. What's actually an app search? App search is a search in Spotlight or search in Safari. Please raise the hand who have used their app search in their applications. Wow, actually not many. Although it's a very powerful feature, only more than 60,000 of applications in App Store using this feature now. It's actually a very sad statistic because I find this feature is really cool, and I'm here to inspire you and show you what you can do actually with this feature. So let's dive deep into this. Actually, App Search consists of three APIs: Core Spotlight API, NS User Activity, and Web Markup API. So let's go one by one. The first one is Core Spotlight API. Core Spotlight API index data no matter if you see them on the screen or not, and it can be only private. It means only local user with its own device can see it, results in Spotlight for these items. And it's also a very good thing for a big amount of data if you need to index 1,000 items or something like that. So let's take an example. For example, I want to index items in a catalog. So I scroll the catalog and I see the Adidas ball. So then when I go to Spotlight, I put the Adidas and I see the result from Spotlight directly linking to my application. It goes not to Adidas website, it goes directly to application, which is amazing because you engage user with it. So how to create searchable item? First of all, you need to import Core Spotlight. Then you need to set up attributes, and then you need to index them. So you need basically go through each item one by one and index them, and you will have like array of items. And that's basically it. Then you can just go and search these items in your Spotlight. Let me emphasize you with some important attributes. One of the important attributes is expiration date. For example, if you have an item that has an expiration date and you don't want to show it at some point for user in an app search, for example, item in sale that will be not in sale anymore in like 2 weeks, you can set an expiration date and it will be removed from indexing automatically. So you shouldn't do this by hand. Also, attribute set. Attribute set is responsible for visualization of your item in the Core Spotlight. And domain identifier is very useful when you want to make a groups of several items and then you want to work with them like with a group. For example, if you want to like remove group of items, items in sale or items about spring collection, for example, if you speak about clothes. So what are the best practices? We have this Delegate, and you need to implement it, so in case if your application will crash at some point, your extension will handle it in background, basically. So it's very important to implement this one. Also, it is important to index items asynchronously. It's like begin batch and end batch, and you will find this example in the GitHub link that I will provide later on. And also, be sure that you have your that you keep your content up to date. So when you remove and remove or update items with something changes in your databases or in your information on your application. To open an item in your application, you need to perform 3 main steps: implement a protocol in your app Delegate. Recognize activity by its type, it's the searchable item action type, and get item from dictionary. That's it, and you will also find example in the GitHub link later. There is also one nice feature that starts from iOS 10. It calls iOS search continuation. It's a feature available only from iOS 10 and up, it will be soon. And it allows to continue your search in application. So basically how it worked before was like that. So you go to Spotlight, you search for something, and then you will see like a small link that show more or show less. So basically you are limited to 10 items per screen. Currently in iOS 10 it works like this. So you type the same request, but then you want to search an application, and it opens application with the same search request in the end. So you like engage your users, and you can show also a lot more items for user, which is very cool because then they can buy more, for example. Sure, as usual, we have some tricky points. And begin badge is working in background thread, and this is not provided actually in Apple documentation. I couldn't find anything about it, so you must know that if you say begin badge, it will everything that will be within this block, begin and end badge, will be performed in background. Yeah, you always need to call end badge before you start another badge, because otherwise your application will crash. You also need to deal with threads if you want to have several threads with different batches by yourself, so it doesn't handle by iOS automatically. So we also have, I mentioned before, this searchable item delegate protocol, and it was not obvious for me that how I can test it actually, because it's extension, and how I can actually trigger this action so I can test it. And finally I found that you can do this in a developer section. So basically you need to call reindex all items or reindex all items with identifier, and then it will trigger this extension call in your application. Item content type is only responsible for how this item will be shown on the screen and which search request the user will put there. So, for example, I thought before, if I have a PDF document and if I will put the PDF type there, it will be somehow simple to handle it, or it will take some keywords from there, but it's not like that. So it's just for these two things. So, for example, location will be with specific arrow on itself if you like specify it's a location type, or it will be like with a phone if you specify the phone call. And you also can provide location in your search request. Automatically, you shouldn't put this keyword, for example, when you index item. So also be careful, it doesn't work on simulators, so you need to use real device for this, to see actual these arrows and what's next? Attribute constructor is not actually, how to say, obvious, because when you set, for example, support phone call or support navigation to true, it will not show you any item in Spotlight if you will not set property phone call to attributes and you not specify longitude and altitude in your attribute sets also, so it will be not like handled automatically. It's really crazy because I like to have it in a constructor, so I provide like all properties in the same time. So next API is NS user activity. What's that? NS user activity is the thing that you use only for visible content, for example, for screen, for controller, and it can be private and can be public. What means private and public? For example, if you have an NS user activity as a public, it means at some point it will go to the cloud, and even if user doesn't have your application, it will show the results in the Spotlight from your application. So then if you tap on result there, you will go to App Store to download the application, which is amazing. To create an NS user activity, the first thing that you need to decide if you want to make it public or private, because if you make it public, it means that Every user should see it, should see this screen. So, like if you have some restriction for specific users, you shouldn't make it public. And it should not contain any private information of the user. So what you need to do, you need to add an activity type to your plist, and then create an S-user activity in your code, for example, in your controller. And then you set that, okay, this activity should be current. Sorry, internet issues. Maybe I can move.
The Wi-Fi is reaching to the limitation. Please turning off the device's Wi-Fi or office Wi-Fi if you do not need to use the Wi-Fi.
Okay, you can imagine here an example. We have a catalog, and in this catalog, like for example, I want to search for Armani shoes. So I make an NS-user activity as Armani shoes activity, let's say. And then when I go to Core Spotlight and I type these keywords, it will redirect me directly to this screen. So, you see. NS-user activity properties are mostly the same as like for NS searchable item properties, but it has one sensitive one is the web page URL. It means that you will link your screen on application with the same screen on web page if you have it, which is very useful because it will index it twice, like one time in a web and one time in your application, which like arise the possibility that user can find it then in Spotlight. What's new in iOS 10? In iOS 10 we got some more features. For example, it's possible to have a weak binding. For example, if you potentially one day want to index some item, so you can link it to an S-user to activity that you have, and also you can keep an S-user activity up to date the same way as an S-searchable item, because before it was not possible. For example, remove activity. Now it's possible. How you handle it in the app is pretty much the same. You just have like your own type of this activity. So each activity on your screen will have like custom type, and yeah, basically it's the same. So you go to Delegate, handle it, and redirect to your page. What are the best practices? Always connect a searchable item with an S-user activity if they like link into the same information or if they show in the same screen in the end. And also it's always good to use a handoff. And again, we have some tricky points here. When you create an S-user activity, you can use like empty initializer, or you can use this long searchable item attribute set initializer. And if you will create an activity with this initializer, it will not work. I don't know why it's provided, but it doesn't work. So what you need to do is you need to initialize it with the empty initializer and then set type as a property separately. It's also fine to use these kind of symbols in your keywords. I don't know, maybe you want to use this kind of things, but it was very suspicious for me that I can do that, so be careful. Also, there is no way to check if an S-user activity is public or private. So basically what you can do, you can check if your crawler already crawl through web pages that represent this activity on your website, but in general you cannot check it anyhow. So you just need to wait and try. So what is the difference? Probably you're curious, what is the difference between the searchable item and an S-user activity? So for me it was also very big confusion, but basically it's so searchable items is like a lot of items on the screen, so you can index all of them even if you don't see them on the screen in the end. And an S-user activity actually is screen representation, how it looks like on the screen. So it's It's specifically for the screen, and it should be always visible. The last but not least, web markup. Web markup is only web-related API, and if you don't have a corresponding website, there is no sense to use this API for you. It's always public, so there is no way to make it private or local for user, and it has app crawler, which also randomized. You never know when your web pages will be crawled by app crawlers, so also there is no way to check it. So to use this API, you need to perform 3 steps. Add deep links to your website markup, add robot.txt for crawler, so it knows it. You can download this, this example from a website, and use a markup to provide for user rich information, nice looking information for that. You also can engage user more with the add a universal link and smart banners. I will show it later how it works. So what are universal links? It's basically links that when you go to a web page and you search something in a Safari and you want to open it in your application, so you can link it directly to your application, not to web page. What you need to do, you need to add add your domains that you will support in your project, and then handle an user activity type browsing web there. So when it comes to your app delegate, you need to handle it and redirect to proper page. And you can check also if you did it correctly or not with specific tool. So basically how it looks for us. For example, I put a link which has also a universal link in it, and it says me if it will work properly or not for users. So yeah, it's also a new feature, relatively new feature. Here how it works. So you search for something in the web, then you find some Zalando, Adidas thingy, and then next time when you search for the same item, it will redirect you to the application. So basically how it works, it remembers the last user choice. You can select the small link on the top, like Zalando Co UK, if you can see it. So you say basically, I don't want to redirect my content to the application anymore, I want to use the web page. So when you press on it, next time when you search for item in Safari, it will be redirected to the web page. So basically you go back and forth if you want as a user, but it's not that obvious from the first point. So how you can come back? You just pull down and you have the smart banner and say, I want to open it in app again. So next time again, when you will search in Safari, it will be redirected to your application. So this is kind of tricky thing. Oops. And again, tricky points. We used to use wildcard in our application, and we had some problems with it because, for example, we didn't want to our application handle all links, but for example, payment links or something that's related to user checkout, for example, we didn't want to use redirection to the application. We want to do it in the web, so we need to restrict our universal links for these specific points. So how to do that? You can use not. So you say that actually you exclude some path from your web page, and then when user want to open application, it simply cannot because it will never redirect it. But pay attention that you always need to specify something that you don't want to include before the wildcard, because otherwise it will not work. And also I had a lot of questions can I redirect my content from another website, not from our company website, but for example from Adidas to my application? No, it's not possible. You cannot do that because you need to specify this metadata in in your web page. So then it will say that, okay, I can redirect it to your application. And obviously Adidas don't want this, so they will not provide this for you. So basically the reasons to integrate this feature are obvious. You will have a quick access to your application, to a lot of pages, to a lot of content that you will use. You will get like top results in Spotlight if user will search for something related to your application, and it increase incredibly like user engagement, because it like make your usage of your application easier and much better. And also it's like app promotion. For example, if you don't want user to use web so much, you can use like universal link, and then you can simply redirect them to your application, which is also cool. Yeah, thank you very much.
Hi, I would like to know about what about indexing items with a lot of images. For example, when items with image, it sounds like when we want to index them, we need to download a lot of image first. So should we reduce the size of the images, or what kind of image should be suggested to use? Otherwise, another question is, should we reshape our image to squares?
So you don't need to save your images when you index them. You can provide just, for example, URL to it, and then when you want to open them, you just retrieve it from the internet or from database, wherever you have it. So basically, to index image, you don't need to save it to the index. There is even no option like that. So the thing that you can save there is like text, keywords, and some properties. And if you wanna like show, for example, in the Spotlight, you wanna show like image in a result, like small icon, you can also set it as a property, but it will be not huge, and the system will reduce size automatically. So you actually shouldn't do any job. So if you wanna index some images, you need to think about content of this image and provide appropriate keywords for these images. So user, for example, if I see the tomato image and I type tomato in a Spotlight search, I will see it, you know. So basically you don't save images itself in indexing. Is it?
All right, thank you. And my next question is, it looks like you have different shape of your image. For example, in your example, your clothes are not square, but a little bit longer. Is that recommended?
No, basically like how you handle images in your application is a separate part. What you put to the indexing is only like keywords and identifier of this image and link to this image or whatever. Like, so then when you get this activity in your app delegate, so how it works, you have images, right? For example, catalog of images, right? You want to index them, and you have image that represents girl on a horse, let's say. So you just need to specify these two keywords, girl on a horse, and like make some identifier. So then you create this searchable, let's say searchable item, and then you put it to the index. That's it. So then when you go to Spotlight, you will search like woman on horse, and then you will, like when you press on the result in Spotlight, you will be redirected to your application. And in App Delegate, you will receive searchable item, which will contain this information, ID of your image and description, for example. So by this ID, you can request your image from your database. This is basically how it works.
Thank you very much.
That's all mine.
Hi, I got
Hello.
two. Hey, I got two small questions. So first one is, do you have any analytics on how many people are using Spotlight to actually get into your app? And then the second question, actually, I'll let you answer that one first.
If you have a statistic, how many people use? Actually, it's really a complicated question because people normally search in Spotlight for like only, name of Zalando. But so far we have like, I think more than 50% users, this come from Spotlight to our application, so it's pretty good results.
Cool. And the second question is, I mean, your app uses timely data, so data will expire, right? So let's say some pieces of clothing is no longer on sale. Do you make data redundant? Do you have like a set time when you say, okay, so now we're not going to index this item of clothing? Or do you just have this one massive store?
I'm not quite sure if I understand the question.
Do you expire your data after a certain time, like the index data?
For example, if we have some items that will not be available in the shop anymore, after like some period of time, we set an expiration date for it, and then it will be removed from index automatically. So basically, if you have an information about this item, so at a point when you index, you might not have this information, but you can update index later on easily. For example, when you get this information, you can say, okay, I know it, I can update my item. So for example, I can set the expiration date as tomorrow. So then it will be removed automatically. So it's not critical if you don't do it right away, you can do it later on.
And sorry, one more question, that's right.
Okay.
And every time you make an API call to get, let's say, the latest data, do you automatically add that to the index?
Sorry if I...
Every time you make an API call, let's say you search for pants or whatever, and then it comes back from this server, you get the data back. Do you put that into the indexing store?
You can check actually if you index this item already or not. Yeah. So you will get the ID or some information about this item, so you just can simply skip it. So, but if you index it twice, it's also not a big deal, I think.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, thank you, Kate. ありがとうございました。